You take chances. You vote in jokers, cranks, weak men, worse, charlatans with some gift of the gab. You run a very serious risk of losing everything you have.
Looking at the declining opinion polls and revolving doors of leadership across the developed world, one has to ask, where have all the good leaders gone? In the UK, there have been 6 prime ministers in just 8 years. Meanwhile, Japan, the long-standing LDP, just lost its parliamentary majority. In France, President Macron's approval ratings have plummeted to record lows. And in the United States, well, not much needs to be said here. Over the decades, the late Lee Kuan Yew observed a significant shift in how governments and developed democracies operated, particularly with the rise of media and the internet, resulting in leaders that are not serving the best interests of their nation. In this video, let's examine his insights on why modern leaders appear to be less effective than their predecessors.
If you read the present media, you say that the world is bereft of great leaders. There was no Winston Churchill or Roosevelt. In my lifetime, they were great men. I lived my most impressionable years when they made massive decisions that decided the shape of the post-war world. Do you have such people today? But do you need such people today?
One reason for the decline in leadership is that the absence of significant struggles in modern society has led the current generation of leaders to become increasingly fixated on wealth.
I mean, I take this present generation. The preoccupation with wealth. They open Fortune 500. All the billionaires. They open Forbes. So many multi-billionaires. So many dot-com chaps have made billions out of nothing. They're just completely swept away by all this. So we've got young administrative officers who've served 6-7 years. Can I take no pay leave? Whilst the dot-com companies are hot, I want to try. The motivations are different. If I were now 20 years old, I might be joining the dot-com venture capitalists, and I'll probably make $1 million or $2 million.
With life being so comfortable, many of the young, talented individuals prefer to remain in business rather than endure the intense public scrutiny and criticism that comes with a political career. This environment often results in individuals with egotistical or psychopathic tendencies seeking political office.
Get our ablest and our best into politics. It doesn't happen in many countries. In America, the ablest and the best become heads of corporations, each one a big empire. If you run General Motors or IBM, your turnover is about 50 times Singapore's GNP, and you can afford your private jet, homes, holidays everywhere. The result is elected office is sought after mostly by those with some extraordinary egotistical urge. The ones who don't like to be seen kissing babies, pumping hands, running all around the place, making endless speeches, just stay in corporate life and do well.
He also highlighted the flaws within the political systems of Britain and America, noting that while some talented individuals do enter government, they often do so for only brief periods and not with a genuine intention to serve their countries. Instead, many politicians leverage their time in office for personal gain, whether it's signing lucrative book deals, speaking engagements, or positions as lobbyists for powerful corporate interests once they've established their names in the political arena.
In most countries, men who go into politics are officially very poorly paid. They get their rewards in other ways, like commissions, kickbacks, patronage, and perks. In America, it is through contacts and consultancies when they leave office. We should not follow these practices.
Consequently, Singaporean ministers are among the highest paid politicians globally. By aligning their salaries more closely with the private sector, Lee believed this strategy would attract capable long-term leaders, while minimizing the temptation for unethical behavior and corruption seen in many other societies.
We have moved into different times, and we've got to keep the system practical and viable. But you've got to keep it clean. What is the sum involved to pay the market rate? Piffle. You underpay, you want to make a show of it. They do this in America, and you see what happens. Try and get a government on the cheap, you end up with a cheap government, and you'll be sorry for yourselves.
Another reason for the perceived decline of leadership is that modern media has created a world where superficial optics have become more important than substance. Lee would point out the troubling convergence of politics, entertainment, and advertising, where politicians are little more than packaged goods, designed to appeal to the widest possible audience.
The consumer society plus mass communications have made for a different kind of person getting elected as leader. One who can present himself and his program in a polished way. Satellite television has allowed me to follow the American presidential campaign. I'm amazed at the way media professionals can give a candidate a new image and transform him, at least superficially, into a different personality. Winning an election becomes, in large measure, a contest in packaging and advertising. A spin doctor now is a high-income profession, one in great demand. From such a process, I doubt if a Churchill, a Roosevelt, or a de Gaulle can emerge.
Additionally, long before the rise of social media, Lee observed that the internet was amplifying all sorts of voices, allowing anyone to share their opinions, whether true or false. With more media consumption options than ever before, this shift has placed immense pressure on leaders, as minor missteps can lead to a rapid loss of credibility for the government.
There's so much rubbish on the internet. There's one site devoted to knocking me down. This is now no longer my job. These are the computer-savvy generation that's got to solve this problem, internet-savvy. But I told them that I believe the critical factor for them now is credibility. If you don't have credibility, you've lost the game. Today, we've got 50 channels on cable television. Why should you be watching the Prime Minister talking? So we've got to have credible news, credible good features, so that when the Prime Minister speaks, has to speak, people will watch. So it's a different challenge now. Whereas, say 20 years ago, when I made an important speech, all three channels carried me. Whether they liked it or not, they listened to me.
Another reason for the perceived decline of leadership is that modern societies have become incredibly safe and comfortable, resulting in populations that feel entitled to special rights and treatment from their leaders. Lee will contrast this against the older generation, who emerged during times of significant instability and crisis.
The difference between the old guard and the new guard leaders are stark, reflecting the differences between the old society and the new. The old society was a revolutionary situation. People felt that everything, including their lives, were at stake. They trusted their leaders and gave us unstinting support. The new society is secure, comfortable, confident. Many of the young believe that prosperity and stability to be theirs as of right, and that they must be consulted before any change is made which could affect them. Revolutionary situations throw up great leaders who demand blood, sweat, and tears. Comfortable circumstances produce leaders who promise people an even easier life, whether they can deliver it or not.
Lee would also emphasize to Singaporeans why leaders like himself cannot be replicated today.
You cannot reproduce the 1959 generation. It's a different world. The 59 generation was the product of Japanese occupation. We were determined to do something about it. We sought each other out to create revolution to get the British out of the place. We were not looking for a career. We were out to topple the system. If you create another Japanese occupation and another upheaval, then you might have another such generation 10, 15 years later. Let's not do things the drastic way. It is now a steady state. Let us look for steady state leaders.
Another reason for the perceived weakness of leadership today is that modern governments often shy away from making tough decisions. He once famously stated, "I have never been over-concerned or obsessed with opinion polls or popularity polls. I think a leader who is a weak leader. If you are concerned whether your rating will go up or down, then you are not a leader. You are just catching the wind." In this snippet, he highlights several short-term thinking policies that have become significant challenges in developed countries, in contrast to Singapore.
You look at other advanced developed countries. Every election, they promise the voter everything that he would like. free health, unemployment benefits, pensions. Who pays? They never raise taxes. They say, oh, this amortized over so many years, which means some future government must raise that money. Net result is you have mortgaged your future. Because we have bold but prudent government, we have not mortgaged our future. And every Singaporean is really an owner of assets, reserves. Churchill told me, look, we calculate and say, when you take up Australian citizenship, you immediately owe so many $1,000 unpaid foreign debt. You become a Singapore citizen, you automatically have acquired so many dollars in assets. We hold assets. So I said, that's correct, but at the same time, they say, what's underneath under the ground? Have we got gold, rubies, diamonds, opals? Well, there we lose, you see. But above ground, cashable assets, fungible assets, we have them.
Next, Lee emphasized the diminishing respect for authority in Western democracies, where leaders are frequently mocked and caricatured, which makes it harder for them to maintain authority and public trust. In contrast, there is a greater respect for leaders in Asian societies, although Lee noted that this respect is beginning to shift.
You've got to give respect to authority, otherwise the system won't work. I mean, if every time you have a man elected president or prime minister says, oh, he's a crook, it can't be believed, the system won't run. You've got to say, well, he's the prime minister. He may not have been the ideal. Well, he has the authority. Let's see how he works. But you will not reach a stage where you can caricature, or what you do here. And Al Gore goes makes a speech, and then the next day he watches a caricature, a satire of himself, and the next debate he gets inhibited because of that. I think that would be thought by the majority of the population as unbecoming. I think it's changing because of the impact of interconnectivity, cable vision, satellites, soon broadband on TV. I watch on cable Taiwan and Beijing television. Taiwan has gone riotous, a la America. I think it's sort of force-fed. I want to show the Americans that we are a real democracy and we're acting like them. I'm not sure that this is doing a service to democracy in the long run in Taiwan, because it's going against the grain of the society and undermining authority. Then you look at the mainland. There's a certain formality, a certain stiffness in which the leader presents his views to the populace.
Ultimately, Lee suggested that the quality of leadership we experience reflects our collective choices, emphasizing the importance of taking voting seriously.
You need a population that understands that. Then it will work. If you believe you're going to get good government, whatever you do, then you're going to risk it all away. You take chances. You vote in jokers, cranks, weak men, worse, charlatans, plausible men with some gift of the gab. You run a very serious risk of losing everything you have. Your future really depends on what you make of it. The government can give you that framework, can give expression to the will of a people, but the people must have their will. If you don't have it, there's nothing a government can do.
Finally, and more importantly, he said the reason why Singapore succeeded was not just because of good leadership, but rather a population that was prepared to accept a government that may need to make unpopular decisions for the greater good of the country. In his memoirs, he states, "If we were a soft society, then we would have already perished. A soft people will vote for those who promise a soft way out, when in truth, there is none."
And because the people supported us, therefore we succeeded. It just wasn't guts on our part. It was guts on the part of a total population. A total population refused to be cowed. We gave them the courage. We drummed up the music, but the people stiffened their backs. And that's the way it has to be done. You want them to perform, please remember, it's not smiling and kissing babies and patting people on the back all the time. There are times when a very good firm karate chop is necessary. and deliver it cleanly. Don't have two chops where one will do. That's the reason why I have the minimum number of people suffering from karate chops. Thank you. Good night.
But this climate of fear, I mean, it's part of it is your creation because of the way.
Are you fearful? If you are fearful, why do you ask me these questions? Is anything going to happen to you? Utter rubbish.
We may not personally be fearful, but we did encounter quite a few young people who were.
I think it's better that they are fearful and will take me seriously, that they think I'm somebody they can brush off. That's all. And if you're the Prime Minister and you're brushed off, you're in trouble.